Welcome back to the unofficial Squarespace Entrepreneur Podcast. Today I'm here with Travis Vance. I'm very excited to have Travis on the show today because Travis is a former Squarespace employee and he's had a number of roles in the company, but he's now outside as what would you call yourself, an independent freelancer, a web design professional. So I'm going to let Travis introduce himself and then we're going to get into it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Amari. As you mentioned, I worked at Squarespace from late 2015 until early 2023. So that time spanned about 7.5 years, and it was a really awesome opportunity. I live in Bend, Oregon, which is in the center of the state, and it allowed me to move to Portland, which is kind of the metropolitan city hub of Oregon. So it was really great to get out of my hometown and experience some culture and, be able to go into an office of Squarespace employees. I don't believe they have an office in Portland anymore, but at the time, that's where I reported to. So my career really spanned the gamut of different roles at Squarespace. So I really started as a support advisor, where I was on the front lines answering questions with any type of DIY customer, fixing little small design issues to larger, more complex, questions around the Commerce API and how to sort of leverage Squarespace's tools and functionality to sell more products, get more leads, get more calls, that sort of thing. So that was the genesis of when I really started blossoming and building sites on Squarespace. I think in that specific role, you really get so much exposure to the platform that it kind of forces you to learn pretty quickly, hands-on. So that was great. And then over the 7 years, I had a few other roles where I was working, at the vanguard of our commerce customer success team. So we had an arm specific to helping, e-commerce merchants grow their online stores on Squarespace. And that sort of morphed into a true customer success team, which was more broad ranging beyond just commerce. And then I was kind of at the first iteration of Squarespace's enterprise product, and then most recently, between 2022 and 2023, I had the good fortune of working directly with the Squarespace Circle community. So that was really rewarding and really fun. I was in a acquisitions and partnerships role for about a year. So that kind of spans the duration of my time at Squarespace. Needless to say, that all led me here to Coyote Moon, which is my web design business. I am a Squarespace web designer, building beautiful sites for SMBs, entrepreneurs, and e-commerce merchants exclusively on the Squarespace platform. And I also offer maintenance packages. So if you're looking for digital marketing, email marketing, ongoing maintenance, design, strategy, that can all be sort of baked into my package as well. So Coyote Moon Creative started in the middle of March 2023. So I'm about 2.5 months in.
Nice, fresh. What got you to Squarespace in the first place?
Yeah, so I had several different roles within the digital marketing and online technology space. I worked for a digital marketing company in Bend that was exclusive to self-storage, multifamily housing, and senior living facilities. So it's kind of a niche digital marketing company, but it was the biggest in our town. So huge employer. That was really kind of the genesis on the tech side. And then I worked for a small startup in the outdoor tourism industry, kind of like a booking software similar to like Acuity Scheduling, but specific to outdoor tour operators.
Mm-hmm.
And most of that was on the sales side. And then, yeah, I had a friend at Squarespace that had joined about a year prior and was in Portland, and I was transitioning in between jobs, and he got me an interview, and I drove straight to Portland the next week and interviewed face to face. And that kind of started my 7.5 year journey in Portland and at Squarespace.
So does it feel like you're now, you're now coming back to contribute to your local community with what you've gathered over the years? Would you say that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really kind of one of the motivators for me is being able to have face-to-face interactions with my friends and family and community here in Bend. I've got such a huge network here that it's important for me at this stage in my career to do as much as I can and be out face to face talking to people, networking. I think that that's kind of one of the biggest challenges for me right now is, you get so used to that sort of corporate mentality of the 9 to 5 and you're stuck in the same role. And while you're feeling like you're climbing the ladder, you kind of get this tunnel vision of, what do I want to do for myself? Like, what's the next step? So
Hmm.
actually the genesis, and I'll take it a step back, was, Squarespace had its round of layoffs. So I had a trip planned to Mexico and I got the call that, a couple members from my team were laid off. And, serendipitously, it just so happened I was going on a vacation and I didn't have any intention really of starting my own business, but I just kind of let everything happen as it would on the trip. Didn't really think much about Squarespace or my next move. Got home and it was just like a light switch flipped. And that next morning, after arriving from our return flight, was like, oh my gosh, I've got this runway in front of me. I've got support, for the next 5 months. Squarespace treated me really well on the separation. So I knew that I had a bit of a runway to figure out what I wanted to do, but I didn't really want to be passive and lackadaisical. So
Yeah.
I just had this immediate notion that I could do this. I could start a business on my own. I have all the tools. I have all the connections. I'm back in a community now where, I know a ton of people. Most of my friends are in their late 30s and have successful careers, and they know people that know people. So it was just kind of putting all the pieces together and being very vulnerable and being willing to just say, hey, instead of diving back into a corporate 9 to 5, I want to do my own thing.
That's really amazing. I had heard about I stumbled on the layoffs via LinkedIn randomly one day, and I was like, oh, I had no idea this was going on. But I haven't spoken to anyone who was affected until now, so it's rather insightful there. I'm curious, now that you're on the other side, right? What would you say some of the misconceptions are that Circle members, for example, might have about what it's like working for Squarespace, or what the customer success teams go through, that kind of thing.
Yeah, misconceptions. Let's see. So I would say that the Squarespace Circle team is small and mighty. Um, while they have grown significantly, particularly in the last couple years since I've had exposure to the team and the larger channels and services department, but Squarespace Circle, I think, as a core unit, might only be a max of 12 people right now. Like they got their first product marketing manager back in late 2021. So somebody that was very dedicated specifically to marketing around Circle. And then, as you've probably seen, Omari, the events and the exposure and the community piece has really increased tenfold, I would say, over the last couple of years. So,
Yeah.
while that misconception of like, wow, like I would expect maybe more products or more rollouts or more service offerings or, a better offering baked into the Circle package, it does take time and it takes a lot of minds. And not only that, but obviously Squarespace Circle is just sort of a small cog in this bigger wheel of this juggernaut that is this large technology company. So there's so many different arms, and that's another thing that maybe is a misconception, is that Squarespace has been acquiring different softwares to kind of make it an all under one roof, more of like a holistic digital marketing platform versus just being pigeonholed into that like website and website hosting. So there's so many levers and so much attention kind of gets pulled in any one direction. So it kind of felt like in the early days that Squarespace Circle didn't always get the lion's share of resources, engineering, marketing, and also just, dollars to spend on really spreading the word. So I feel like that's changed drastically. And one of those big changes, I would say, was Squarespace Circle for 2022, which was an event where I think around 150 designers and developers were invited on site at Squarespace's headquarters in New York to share their knowledge, network, interact, and learn from one another. So, and that was received very well within the community. But yeah, I think this misconception around just like the team maybe having more resources than they do. So it's kind of interesting to kind of hear the truth on that. So
Yeah. So I mean, you've had a number of roles here. I'm curious, as building out customer success teams, uh, like what could we benefit from that particular experience, right? Like my last corporate role was like a third tier supervisor for a technical support team, right? And I feel like I'm still kind of doing the same thing 10 years later, just in a different context. And so when I look back, I think, okay, well, what were some of the things we were doing on the corporate side of things that I could like incorporate in my work? Um, what have you learned from building customer success teams with e-commerce enterprise that would be useful to another Squarespace web designer who's just starting out, who maybe doesn't have the same background as you?
sure. Yeah. So I think oftentimes within those three different niches I was working within, it was more of, running pilots to really inform future strategy. So we were really trying to connect one-on-one, especially on the commerce side in the early days where, we knew that we had a burgeoning commerce platform. But financially, I don't think Squarespace was really felt like it was meeting the mark. So I think the customer success pilots on that front were a way to learn from those customers and also help them without anything in return. I think that's a big key component is you don't always have to ask for financial gain or anything else from your customers. You just have to be willing to say, I want to help you with nothing in return. So that looked like one-on-one calls, live screen share recordings, and going like above and beyond to really pinpoint areas where they could improve and optimize their site for performance. So in the early days, it was just a lot of sort of piloting and figuring out what sticks. And I think that led to future iterations of how the customer support arm really interacted with customers. So there was that side of it. And I think all of those learnings that I had throughout those pilots and starting customer success teams for Squarespace Commerce and Enterprise, those were pivotal, and those are still foundations in the bedrock with how I treat my customers. I'm fortunate in my position right now to have a couple clients that are pretty near and dear to the types of causes that are important to me. I've got one who's an author that wrote a book for Patagonia Publishing about dams and their impacts on fish and wildlife in the American West. And then another is a nonprofit about water conservation for like a colder and cleaner water source here in Central Oregon. So I've been really fortunate to work with folks that are like-minded. And I've just found myself going above and beyond on multiple fronts. Knowing that I'm a new business owner, I don't really ask oftentimes for additional payments when I'm doing things that are kind of above and beyond because I care about them. And I also am enjoying the work. So let me see, what does that look like? For example, like if one of those clients came to me and asked me to set up their, custom email, and that was sort of outside of the scope of the contract, or there was something that was kind of above and beyond on the domain connection side of things, or, oh, by the way, I need a little SEO work, even though it wasn't baked into the contract, that's like an automatic yes for me. And I think, again, those foundations were set within building customer success teams where it's like, put the customer first in every regard, be empathetic, be open, and listen so that you can really understand what they need, who they are, and how to really feed a system that makes their lives easier in the future.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, I was just talking with a last guest an hour ago about leading with helping others. And I was saying that it never fails. And it's interesting to hear that coming from a larger enterprise, right? Making sure that there's still an element of the enterprise that is piloting and learning from those one-to-one interactions, even though it's a multi-billion-dollar company at this point. Um,
Right.
I've learned over the years that my business, at least nowadays, is largely based off of partnerships. And you've done some work with partnerships and acquisitions, uh, in this space. What could we get from that? Like for me, what I've gotten or how my partnerships have kind of evolved is as an affiliate and leveraging the affiliate model to create somewhat of an ecosystem or network where there's a lot of mutual benefit. What could we learn from Squarespace's approach to partnerships and acquisitions?
Sure. So in my limited time within that role, which was about 6 months, one of the pillars was finding um, other organizations. So for example, we were targeting organizations in the no code space. Obviously that's kind of an emerging sort of industry all in its own right, but partnering with like a no code founder type of company who is already naturally working with the types of customers that Squarespace Circle might want to attract. So entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small business owners, folks that are starting software tools, et cetera. And so what that looked like was really vetting and researching a ton of different ones within that space. So kind of sticking within that niche, finding ones that we really felt like were going to be a win-win mutually beneficial relationship for the long term. And I think that's difficult when you're doing it for the first time. So obviously there were some pitfalls with that, but we would try to put together a budget for a partnership with a no code founders type company. And we would offer ongoing webinars, discounts, maybe lower barriers to entry to try and get into Squarespace Circle, whether that was like paid or, kind of offering like, a 2-hour consultation to kind of get them going, et cetera. So there were sort of these value adds that we were testing out. And I think, again, like that goes back to this sort of like pilot mentality. Squarespace Circle to me still feels so brand new that there's so much territory and terrain to explore that you really do oftentimes have to kind of test out pilots and throw some money at the wall to see what sticks. So I would say, trying to find as best you can mutually beneficial partnerships that we're going to provide deep value for like a no code community, and also in turn really expose those community members, those existing community members, to the value of Squarespace Circle, which, by the way, is a pretty incredible partner program, especially for being free and for being so easy to get into.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten so much out of Squarespace's community circle offerings over the years from day one. that I think it can't be understated how useful and valuable it is to get involved and contribute all of the above. Um, so Travis, it's been 2.5 months now. What are your days like in comparison to a year ago this time?
So it just depends on the week. I would say that I'm waking up a lot earlier. I'm starting work a lot earlier, and I'm finishing work a lot later. And that's probably a fairly common response to that question. But I'm finding a lot more energy and value in what I do. I'm feeling I guess, motivated and encouraged, especially with in kind of going back to your question about partnerships, weaving that into my own business. So reaching out to folks like you and David Alex and Christy Price and Henry Purchase with SEO Space and Ed Baker, and really trying to broaden my network and learn and understand from them. And again, this is going back to that like give more than you take mentality, but picking their brain, having sort of like a one-on-one to understand what their business is, and not asking for anything in return. And oh, by the way, hey, if you ever have any questions about sort of the internal workings of Squarespace Circle or Squarespace in general, or if I can introduce you to anyone, like I'm open arms. So my days as a web designer, I would say, I'm working longer. I'm feeling much more motivated. I'm much more satisfied with my work. I get to operate in the mode that suits me. I don't have to put on a mask or change my tone or how I convey my thoughts or my messages. I can be myself, and I have found that extremely rewarding. And I think that takes time. I think that's taken a decade to figure that out. I don't think I would have been ready to start a web design business 5 years ago. I think it takes time, and there's so many people that you rely on and learn from over the years that maybe just subliminally you don't recognize until you're at that moment where you want to step out on your own. So I'm very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, that's huge. You mentioned not having to wear the mask anymore. Um, it's funny for me, my experience has been like thinking that there's still masks that needed to be worn like in other places. And it's like, nah, drop the mask.
Exactly. Be
Um,
yourself. It's always the best, truest representation of yourself is gonna, it's gonna serve you well in business.
yeah, for sure. For sure. And you can survive without it, but you don't want to survive. You want to thrive, and it's best to thrive as yourself than some imitation version. Um, there's a lot that you just brought up in that transition experience from a year ago to now, and one of the things that stands out is reaching out to people. And this podcast for me, it started with someone reaching out to me back in like 2016. I was man uh, the name is escaping me right now. um Stank, Devin Stank. And
Okay.
in that conversation, it was like, oh wow, I should probably have more conversations like this because I'm sure it was beneficial for him at the time. We've become friends over the years, but it was definitely beneficial to me because months later, I realized I was acting on small little insights he had given me throughout that conversation. And so I try to keep that going today, where this is largely selfish for me because I get to know you people. It's like, um, and then I get to offer that as a service as well through the podcast, where it's like, all right, I'm not getting to know Travis by myself. There's an audience who also gets to benefit from this, shared learning experience. So I think my point is, never hesitating to reach out to anyone in your field or at least this field, right? Who looks like they're doing something who you might want to do or try. because people are very generous with what they have to give and offer, because that generosity is kind of what keeps things going around.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a more welcoming, fun, encouraging, motivated community than the folks that are Squarespace experts, Squarespace designers, and a part of the Squarespace Circle community. Honestly, I've just been blown away. And those names that I've mentioned thus far are probably, I may be missing a few here and there, other folks that have supported me along the way. But again, going back to my core mentality of like, give so much more than you take, and being willing to share your knowledge for free. And, down the line, everything kind of comes around, everything comes back. And I have found myself in the fortunate position to be able to help them, maybe 2 or 3 months down the road. And whether it's sending them business or supporting them on new product launches, it's been really, really rewarding.
You mentioned website maintenance or maintenance packages earlier on, right? Um, Thinking forward, like how I guess how are you thinking about your business? Now that it's like, all right, now this is a thing, I'm moving with it. Like, how are you thinking about your business model and how it evolves? Are there things that excite you more than other things? Are there things that you're excited to try? Are you just kind of like open for everything right now? Um, like how do you see yourself reaching a point of like sustainability?
Yeah. I think that the way that I started my business was oftentimes like in reverse order. So I actually joined a local networking group for like, business owners and startup founders. And somebody asked me the question in our monthly meeting about, I think like, what are the pain points of your customers? And I just kind of froze, and I'm like, I know the pain points, right? Like, folks don't want to manage their website on their own. They're, fed up with a system that, constantly requires security updates and plugins and X, Y, and Z to be effective. So, but I kind of froze, and I was like, I need to do that with my business. Like, that needs to be a rock solid foundation. But all that is to say, like, I feel like sometimes when you start a business, you kind of you put the cart before the horse, for lack of a better term. And I've done that many times
Yeah.
along my road. But I think that if I were to look at the future and sustainability, I want to be in a space where I'm working closely with the types of businesses and organizations that I want to work with, versus kind of more of this like garden variety mentality of like, I'll take on any client. It doesn't matter. I just need the money. I would like to kind of stick in this little niche that I've carved out for myself, where it's like outdoor adventure and, environmental conservation and authors. I've built a few sites for authors, and I think those are really fun folks to work with. And obviously, for me, it's getting to a place as quickly as I possibly can where I can feel confident in raising my rates. I can feel confident in raising the rate of every single one of my service offerings in addition to my add-ons. But for me, I really want to partner long-term with every customer. So
Right.
even though I might not be 100% expert in every given field, whether it's digital marketing, email marketing, social media, web design, et cetera, et cetera. I'd be foolish to say if I was an expert in all of those, but I want to get to a place with most all clients, if they're open to it, to continue to have this like long-term relationship, and whether that's $200 to $400 a month for partnering with them to expand their online reach, or add new functionality or content strategy. I found myself taking on copywriting jobs here in these last couple months, email marketing, digital marketing. So being so fresh and so new, I think it's going to take a little time to really get to a point where I can say, oh, I love copywriting, I want to continue doing copywriting, versus, oh man, that's really hard, it's taking me away from like the web design of my business.
Yeah.
So I think time will tell, but yeah, I'm just open to learning. That's the funnest part about this business ownership is like you could literally never stop learning within these different industries. I mean, it is a nonstop um, game of finding what's next and finding what sticks. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I it took me a while to realize that there's a difference in your long-term view as a business owner than as an employee where um you're not thinking, oh, this is my lifetime job, but as a business owner, there is lifetime value in your client relationships where, for example, like there's things that I used to do for clients years ago that I've moved on and thought that was it, but those same clients from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago still reach out occasionally for random things just because it was a good experience or because I like to do jack of all trade stuff. So it's um, but
Yeah.
I didn't foresee that, or I was never thinking that far down the line that like, oh, okay, so this person I'm sitting down with here at this coffee shop today, we could be still doing business 8 years down the road. And so I didn't put as much value in the long-term potential of these relationships, both from a business standpoint and just as a person. So that's one thing that nowadays I'm a little bit more mindful of. That, oh yeah, it doesn't just stop. It doesn't just
Yeah.
stop. People's needs grow and evolve and change, but if if you're positioned in a certain way, then you can grow and change and evolve with them. So
Yeah. And I think one of the core tenets I feel like of moving towards that direction is having um, more of a holistic service offering right out of the gates. So most of the clients
right.
that I've been, in proposal with, I'm, saying, hey, do you have a Google My Business profile? Are you interested in email marketing? Is SEO important for you? If you're a brand new business, is that important? Is that valuable? So there's so many levers that you can sort of pull to get to that long-term relationship. And also, I think one thing to highlight is that business owners, they can choose any old web designer, right? And it's the ones that care. I feel like, people are looking for somebody that is willing to answer your call, is willing to respond to your email, is willing to go just even a little bit extra mile. And for me, oftentimes I've gone 10, 15, a marathon sort of additional distance, right? And that's what they want. They know that they can get a website from just anyone, but it's like, how much do you care? How much empathy do you have? How much are you willing, especially as a new business owner, just to say, hey, I'll do this. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't need to write this into the contract. Like, I'm going to spend an additional 2 hours finding and running down an answer for you because I care about you. And that's where I'm at. That's the bedrock of my business.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was having recent or months ago, I was having a little congestion in my support channel, and it was really important for me to fix that. And so now that I'm back down to like inbox zero, now when the one or two tickets come in, I feel much more comfortable. Like, all right, I can, if this takes me an hour to figure out or whatever, it's no big deal,
Right.
because I'm not overwhelmed with a bunch of other stuff. And but it's really that experience is really what like keeps me going every day. It's like, all right, I saved a headache or something, on a daily basis, and it's easy to kind of disconnect from that experience when it becomes a headache for you.
Right.
So it's like
Exactly.
minimizing my own headaches so that I could better serve other headaches.
Sure. Yeah.
Travis, it has been great talking with you and getting to know, your experience here. Is there anything that you want to leave with our audience or any questions for me?
Um, Well, I'm thankful that there is a podcast that exists for Squarespace entrepreneurs. I would hope that my story could hopefully pique the interest or encourage somebody else that has gone through a similar experience. Also, I would love to at some point have a separate conversation with you, Amari, and learn more about your business, because I know that you're very well respected and received within this community, and you've built a really awesome business. So I'm sure there's little tidbits I could learn from you. But yeah, I'm just excited to continue this journey, man. It's been so rewarding so far. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface on the potential. And yeah, I'm thankful that you were open to hearing my story, and hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm big on transition. So, I'm glad I was able to catch you at this particular transition because I think it's a unique one, but still one that all of us can relate to.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, that's it for this show. Thanks again, Travis, and we'll talk again.